Dale's a small, peaceful, rural community where everybody knows everybody else, and that's what I like about it. There's not a lot of hustle and bustle.
Dale, a town of about 1,500 people in Spencer County, sits along Highway 231 between Jasper and Lincoln City. It is now the proposed site for Riverview Energy's $2.5 billion coal-to-diesel plant. If built, this would be the first of its kind in the United States. In a phone interview with the Indiana Environmental Reporter, Riverview Energy President Gregory Merrill explains the process this plant would use.
It's known as a direct process, which means it's a once-through process that does not involve gasification of the coal or combustion of the coal. So what basically happens is we'll be taking coal and pulverizing it, taking it into a powder, and slurrying it, which means mixing it with some form of liquid such as crude oil or oil residues that come out of the process itself. We add hydrogen to this slurry. The hydrogen itself comes from natural gas. The coal slurry mixing with the hydrogen, where the two react and produce the hydrocarbon chains that are ultra-low sulfur diesel.
Coal-to-diesel plants have been proposed in many other states, but all have eventually been canceled, including here in Indiana. In fact, Riverview first tried to build this plant in Vermilion County, but after 6 years turned to Dale. Resident Mary Hess explains.
The rumors actually started going around town in early summer of 2017, and of course nobody could get definitive answers. Then a friend of mine I was out at her house, and she said the town board president had sat on her porch and was telling them how great this plant was going to be, it was coming, and how great it was going to be for the town of Dale and what we would benefit from it. And of course she said, now wait a minute, this doesn't sound all that great. Are we going to have an opportunity to ask questions? So then of course on January 25th of this year, it was announced that the application had been made.
Dale is ideally situated as far as the coal itself is concerned, so one of the main reasons we're in this area is this particular process particularly likes Illinois Basin coal. It likes that coal because of the sulfur content. It's worth noting that I tend to focus on the coal side of this project because we're coal guys. I've been in coal for so long that that's what we know. But almost half of our feedstock is in fact natural gas. Dale is, we're a couple miles from one of the main pipelines transporting gas throughout the U.S. or through the Midwest in particular.
Residents began asking questions and attending town board meetings, but weren't given any information about the plant until all the building permits were approved. Neighbors became divided on if this plant would be good or bad for the community. Kathy Renicky, Spencer County Regional Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, spoke about this in December.
It is unfortunate as to the amount of animosity that has arisen between friends and neighbors due to differing opinions, either in favor or against the plant. It seems that it's been more indecisive than even when we were dealing with Trump versus Hillary.
Those in favor of this plant believe it's a good opportunity for jobs and economic growth. Riverview has estimated that there would be 2,000 initial construction jobs and 225 permanent jobs. Timothy Broomfield is a business agent for the Boilermakers Union. Boilermakers would be used in building this proposed plant.
Right now, the Dale area, of course, there's some jobs available, but they're low-paying jobs. I mean, they're minimum wage or slightly above that, and that really is not a sustainable amount for a person to raise a family on. You can't raise a family, in not in these times on low-paid wages like that.
This plant could also help other industries in the state, including coal production. Indiana Coal Council President Bruce Stevens explains.
1.6 or 1.7 million tons of coal annually for that plant will offset significantly by about 50% the coal that we have lost due to shutdowns as a result of the MATS rule or other federal regulations. So it will put an additional 150 coal miners to work. An underground coal miner will make $80,000 to $100,000 annually. You don't have those opportunities in a lot of other sectors in that part of the state.
Those opposed are concerned about potential health issues associated with emissions from the plant. According to Riverview's own air permit application, the plant would release around 2.2 million tons of carbon dioxide, 225 tons of carbon monoxide, and 120 tons of sulfur dioxide annually. Within 2 miles of the plant's proposed site is a nursing home, an elementary school, and an organic farm. Indiana currently ranks as the 6th worst polluter in the U.S., according to the Environmental Protection Agency's Toxic Release Inventory. Mary Hess and others opposed to the plant formed Southern Indiana Citizens for Quality of Life.
I can pick out 5 people in the town of Dale, and there's going to be at least 3 or 4 out of the 5 that have or had cancer. And we do have one of the super polluters in the southern part of the county. There's got to be a connection somewhere, but I'm not so naive that that's the only reason, but it's not helping.
Dr. Norma Kreiliner is a pediatrician who has been practicing in southwestern Indiana for 30 years and has already seen issues she attributes to environmental concerns.
Seeing autism and attention deficit disorder, anxiety, stillbirths, prematurity, just more of everything and more severe than what we should be seeing.
The Indiana Department of Environmental Management said in their preliminary findings report this plant would not cause a significant impact on human health.
Aren't we, just by the last 2 reports by the UN and the US government, supposed to be reducing our carbon emissions? I mean, if you have all these health officials on those 2 reports alone telling you to stop and do something before 2030, this is not helping. I mean, even Indianapolis has got a plan to be carbon neutral, but yet it's okay that they come down here and put a plant that's going to emit 2.2 million tons of carbon. Does it make sense? No.
Stevens agrees there is a need for regulations, but there also needs to be a balance.
You absolutely have to protect human health. You have to protect the public from a safety perspective, the environment as well, absolutely. We all want clean air, we all want clean water. But overall, there needs to be a balance in any regulation. While the boot of the federal government's not on our throat these days, there were many things that were passed that were very onerous to our industry that we're still dealing with and having to come to terms with.
On December 5th, IDEM held a listening session at Heritage Hills High School in Lincoln City, allowing the citizens to voice their opinions about issuing Riverview an air permit, which would allow them to start building. Over 400 people attended, including Dr. Kreiliner.
They approve everything, but I feel they need to be embarrassed. I feel they need to be ashamed. I feel they need to have morals and scientific integrity in government and not simply rubber stamp what can be loopholed as legal.
Broomfield agrees that he wants clean air and water for his children, but feels confident Riverview is complying with current regulations.
I read through that permit and I saw especially the first 33 pages. I read through that and all the equipment. Now the general public, these folks, they're good folks, their intentions are good. You know, I've got nothing against any of them. But I work in these industries, I build these industries, I build the pollution control systems in these industries, and I know that we can have good paying jobs and we can have clean air at the same time.
Joseph Nikolic spoke before the IDEM committee against the plant being built.
I'm very disappointed that it has to be held. I'm very disappointed that I have to be here because that means you all aren't doing your job. Your job is to protect the environment, not to be the Better Business Bureau, not to be the Chamber of Commerce, not to rubber stamp. And the name management in your name says it all. You think you can manage pollution. You can't. Any pollution's too much. It has a cumulative effect.
Well, it's a mathematical certainty it will affect their health. It's kind of like Indiana tends to operate by the rule of if the tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, then there's no sound. You know, if we don't monitor and we don't measure, then nobody's sick and there's no impact.
Steve Herm, a Boilermaker attending the hearing, said,
"The board did a good job of making sure that this plant complies to current law. Facilities in this area, they've changed over the years too, and they've adapted to the current laws. And so the plant that we have today is much cleaner than the plant that we had yesterday. And we continue to clean these things up as technology evolves and as the environmental laws change.
IDEM has still not released their decision on the permit. If IDEM does issue the permit, Hess says she and her group will continue to fight.
We're, keeping legal options in mind. So, yeah, we've got a lot in the fire yet, so we're not giving up, that's for sure.
Beth Edwards, Indiana environmental reporter.